welcome to our webinar, Grand Opening, Discover the new 6th edition digital experience. So you're going to see the latest features of the updated platform. These are enhancements that are shaped directly by feedback from Latin teachers in North America, like you. And they include the updates that have been made this month. I'm Rachel Hobbs from Cambridge University Press and Assessment, and I'm hosting this webinar for our speakers SK Smith and Stefanie Gigante from the North American Cambridge Classics Project, otherwise known as the NACCP. So thank you for joining us today. Do say hello in the chat box. It would be good to hear from you. And I'll just briefly explain how we're going to run the webinar. So we're recording today and we'll be able to share this with you afterwards. So don't worry if your internet drops, just rejoin us when you can. If your speakers are giving you a bit of trouble, we suggest using headphones for the best experience, and we ask that you keep your microphones muted and your videos off until we get to the Q&A. If you've got any technical issues, put those in the chat box and we'll do our best to help you. And if you have any questions, please can you use the Q&A box, and we'll either be able to answer those during the presentation or at the end. We'll get to as many as we can. So we've got an hour for the session today, and then we'll send you an email after the webinar with a link to the recording. So now I am going to welcome our presenters who have a wealth of experience in the classroom. Both have taught for more than 20 years. We have SK Smith, who teaches at Riverdale Country School in New York, and Stefanie Gigante, who teaches in New Jersey and also serves as a technology innovation specialist within her school district. So over to you two.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're so excited to bring you this latest grand opening of the Cambridge Latin courses digital resources. Steph?
Yeah, thank you so much for both of your introductions. We've been, playing around with the new digital resource package for a few months now. We did a series of webinars in the springtime, and we were so excited to present in the springtime that we wanted to present before the product was actually even really completely done. But Maddie at the press and her team have been working assiduously since then, and the whole product is now finished, and we would like to really share it all for you so that you can really start to envision how you can begin using it in your school year. We chose a presentation date of today because we thought that either you were perhaps at the very beginning of your new school year, or that you were looking forward to, insofar as anyone's really looking forward to a new school year in the coming weeks, and that you would have some resources at your disposal to start working with when it comes to your students. The press and assessment wing of Cambridge University is really proud of this product. They have been honing it for years in response primarily to North American teacher feedback. We were sort of, pestering them, asking them nicely for years that in North America, especially the US, we're very data-driven in our classrooms, and we are data-driven sometimes by choice, but also sometimes by our admin, our programmatic structures in our school. And it has always been a challenge to offer activities in a digital format that have that level of accountability, as well as a level of tracking for your students to be able to not only see but evaluate the data and use that data to inform your instruction and the feedback that you can give to students. And so Cambridge definitely, they heard us loud and clear, and they've been really hard at work for years, really, creating a new digital resource package that will address a lot of the concerns that have been aired and shared by teachers within North America. Smith, did you want to add anything before I dive in?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think is really important to emphasize is that in the past with the digital resources, when teachers would assign things, You didn't have a real time component, and so the new digital resources offer a real time component so that you can track student progress and performance, and we will show you what that looks like as we go through the digital resources today. It's a marvelous way, really, to support student success, and it really helps streamline classroom management.
Excellent. So without further ado, I will go ahead and share Cambridge Go so that we can start giving you a pretty robust overview of everything that is offered within the platform. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And you should know when you are requesting access to it, there are accounts that they can give you if you email kaikilius@cambridge.org, because of course he's the man with the plan, right? So if you email Kaikilius, you can also get a code that will give you some access to check these resources out on your own and begin to evaluate them, and then see how you can use them in your classroom either alone or get student subscriptions as well. So I'm going to be logging in from the perspective of a teacher and just kind of taking you on a tour as much as possible. So Go, as you can see, is a resource that's set up for Cambridge as a whole. When you get an access code, you would get access to Unit 1 and Unit 2, which is a new thing. When we were doing our spring webinars, Unit 2 resources weren't available yet, but they are live and ready to go. And so when you log into your Cambridge Go account, you probably will not have mathematics or early years or something like that. You'll probably just have Cambridge Latin here. So to go into Unit 1, it's going to open up a new screen. It's going to give you student resources. We are going to talk more about this heading of language activities. We're going to spend a lot of our time talking about that today, in fact. There is also a fully digital version of the student's book, so that if you are a school district or a school that is not buying textbooks these days and they are relying on online access only to materials, this is, going to provide that for you. And these are new additions to the package. There are videos that would accompany the students' books, and this, if I click on videos, just to sort of show you briefly, it actually gives you stage by stage all the videos that you're used to watching in your classroom, but they are organized in a friendly table of contents type of environment here. So by stage, you can see each one of the videos, and these are the same videos. We haven't updated, but I mean, why would you? They're classics, right? They're cinema history right here. So we would never want to replace them with anything else anyway. But if you're used to using these in your classroom to introduce stories, to talk about culture, to reflect on the characters' journeys, they are here for you. And as I said, because they're organized by stage, it's very helpful to be able to show the one you want at the right time.
We have a quick Q&A. Jennifer Jones is asking how she can tell if the codes are 6th edition codes versus 5th edition codes. All she received was a list of codes from her supervisor. So I would recommend, if your supervisor doesn't know or doesn't have the order history, if you reach out to kaikilius@cambridge.org, and I'll put that again in the chat, you should be able to get an order history to determine whether it's 5th edition or 6th edition.
Yeah, that is a very good question, though, because your codes should be able to enable one of those two versions. This is also a new dimension that was not present in the springtime, and that is the teachers' resources. And I say not present, they were working on it behind the scenes, but it was really just a question of loading everything in the most, organized fashion. So when you go to the teachers' resources tab, it has the teacher's manual. It has the teacher's manual in all of its various parts. And one of the newest parts of the teacher's manual is this guide that says how to use this digital coursebook and activities. So in the event that you are sitting in front of your work computer in 6 weeks and thinking, oh my gosh, what was that thing that Smith said that was like so interesting about using XYZ? You will probably be able to, I mean, you could rewatch our webinar today, but you can also click on this link to use the digital course book and to use the activities, and it's laid out for you in that format. There's also a really helpful guide to changes that will demonstrate how the 5th edition evolved into the 6th edition. And this is really helpful if you've been a 5th edition teacher, from the jump, because it's been about 10 years, right? You've probably memorized the 5th edition in and out. And so this is a good guide that'll help you understand, what's new, what to look forward to, and, to sort of transition your students if they've used perhaps the 5th edition for Unit 1 and you're about to use the 6th edition for Unit 2. You can help prepare them for that. And then the teacher's manual I'm so sorry, Smith. What did you want to say?
I was just going to add that the Guide to Changes offers changes in the storyline, changes in new language features, and changes in culture. So it's very specific, and you can go to that to look stage by stage to get a down and dirty on how you need to shift your instruction for students with the 6th edition.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. The teacher's manual here, it's actually nice that it breaks it down by stage, because, the original teacher's manual as a solid PDF, it is a very helpful document. And if you're like Smith and I, like you're using the teacher's edition on the regular, but you open up this 300-page document and you have to do Control F to find the stage 6 Felix readings. And whereas you could do that, it's also better to have a more targeted thing to just download the stage 6 Felix PDF and then open it right away. And then you have your teacher's edition. It should open right here in my browser. So this is, again, a targeted teacher's edition for just stage 6. And obviously it outlines all the things that your students will be learning about. It provides content notes. It talks about the sequence and approach of the stage, some new vocabulary, and provides some suggestions for teaching. And that's one of the greatest things about this digital package in general, because there are so many resources that are like really just embedded within the text and within the software itself, that you really, especially if you're a first, second year teacher and you're sort of overwhelmed, or if you're a teacher who has 5 preps and you're sort of overwhelmed, there's a lot of built-in resources and support right here within the website that I think will help direct a lot of your efforts with your classes.
There are 2 things that I wanted to add on to that. One is that if you are in a place where you feel like your teaching could use some refreshing, an injection into energy, or a change or a shift in some way, it reminds you about like pre-reading activities, a first pass through a story, how to approach that story. If you hadn't been thinking about different ways to teach a story. And the cultural material is outstanding. There are so many different links, highly researched. So if for nothing else, then you want a new insight into storytelling, and you're looking for ways to really undergird the cultural section and how it attaches to the storyline, it's a fantastic resource. It is a don't miss.
Yeah, and to Smith's point, I mean, I happen to go to the cultural information just for stage 6, and if you look, it's on page 10 out of an 18-page document, which means 8 out of 18 pages, which is just shy of 50%, is dedicated to providing you with a lot of background on the cultural information that's provided, and some teaching tools too. So for free, useful advice on how to write and speak about slavery, please see this article, and it lists the website, which is a link that's just provided for you. You don't even have to Google it. And it explains all the thinking points with, as you can see, just websites galore to be able to really address even sensitive subjects like the role of slavery in ancient Rome.
The thinking points are a fantastic addition to the 6th edition because it's something that wasn't there before. It gives you a guideline as to how to handle thinking points, what you might want to do as like a class discussion, or have students work individually or with partners in some manner. But it's really, I think, one of my favorite things about the new text.
Indeed. So back to the teacher's manual tab, there's also a language synopsis, vocab checklist, etc. I mean, we could probably run a webinar on just the teacher's manual, but we'll spare you and we'll try to move on. In addition to the other teacher resources that we've just shown you, there's also worksheets, and the worksheets are organized by stage, and they are zipped together as one file folder so that you can download all of the content for stage 4 at once, or whatever stage you're in, upload that whole folder to your drive, and then you can choose what you want to do from there. And please note that each of these worksheet folders not only has a PDF of the worksheet itself, but also has a PDF worksheet of the answer key. Because again, teachers, we don't have a lot of time, we have a lot of stress, and your Latin might be great, but sometimes it's easier to just look at a quick answer key and not have to worry about filling in, a version for yourself. There are also some assessments provided. These assessments, they are labeled A, B, and C, and these assessments are meant to be used in a cumulative sense at the end of stages 4, 8, and 12. These assessments are available within these folders as a Word document or a docx file, also as a PDF, but the docx, it actually even says in the title of the document that it's an editable file. So, many of us, we assess in ways that we prefer to assess. We assess in ways that our department supervisors want us to assess. We assess in ways that our colleagues would like us to assess our students. So having it in a docx format is really helpful because you can take the pieces of the assessments that you would like to do and add in other things or, take away certain sections as well.
And the cultural components in each assessment are broken up according to stage. So if you wanted just to give some assessment at the end of stage 2, for example, you could pull out that cultural component from assessment A because it includes everything from stages 1 through 4.
And then finally here, there is a robust conversation about the alignment of Unit 1 to the National Latin Exam, which, as you know, is a pretty popular standardized test that we give here in North America, so that, when it comes time for February and March and you want to prepare your students to take the exam, this is a great document that helps you align using the Cambridge Latin course with your students to achieve good results. So that is it for teacher resources. I'm going to go back. I didn't need to close that. I just did because I was feeling silly. And then there's the student book teacher's version. And, whereas I'm not sure if we're necessarily going to have time for a full-blown exploration into this, I can tell you that Smith and I spent a great deal of time talking about the navigation of the online textbook student edition through a teacher lens in the very first of spring webinars. And so if you follow the link that's given, the landing page link that's in our Zoom backgrounds, you can get to a recording of our previous webinars, and then you can watch it from there. But, again, each of these textbooks, online or otherwise, it also starts with, I don't know if you can read it from where you are, so I'll zoom in a little bit, how to use the digital coursebook and activities. So now we've seen the second iteration of, tips and tricks and best practices for using this new digital program within your curriculum. And it has a lot of information there. Now, as far as navigating goes, it works very similar to existing Go, but also for Elevate, if you're an old school person like myself, as a matter of fact, you can get a table of contents and you can access any stage you want from the table of contents. Smith, you want to walk through a little bit about what's in each stage once it loads?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I like on the very... It's totally fine. I can talk while it loads. So one of the things I like on the title page is that there are 3 different icons, and they're always in the right corner below the title. So it says Negotium Stage 3. And as Steph zooms in, you'll see the top one has a little camera icon. And so those are all of the videos. This is the video for opening of stage 3. It's the intro to stage 3. I like that it's broken up this way because it gives you a very clear, I could give kids a quick, introduction to what's happening here. And then if you go over to the left on the bottom and scroll over that. So that gives you all of the teaching notes broken up by stage when you're in that stage, which I absolutely love. I think it's super helpful to say, okay, instead of, as Steph mentioned before, having to dig through a PDF and Command F, and I'm trying to find whatever it is about this story, it's right there with a nice, easy click. And then on the right, the information here is all of the worksheets that you will use for stage 3. So you've got an introductory video, the teacher's manual, and then all of the worksheets for stage 3. So if you don't remember where to access the worksheets, you can get them just by stage, going to the teacher version of the student book. Super easy. And the students don't have that, which is great. When you move ahead to a story, if you'll just hover over like artifacts or info, it doesn't really matter, either one. So click on the web link just so people can see. So there are these nice little icons above each story, and they're always to the title of the left of the title of the story. And you've got an explore the story and a word check. There are also think questions, not for this story, just as in the 5th edition, there weren't think questions for every story, but there are also think questions available. You can turn the derivatives button on or off. You can have the audio recorded. I really have to say it's great to play some of the audio as well, especially for students who are struggling learners and benefit from audio. But thanks, Steph, for turning on the on button. You can see all of the different connections as you hover over a word. So it gives you the definition, and then it gives you connections to English, French, Spanish, etc.
Yeah, and I think having those derivatives quickly available, it's important for students to see. Students, you can tell them that Latin is very important, and you can tell them that it's the root of so many other languages. But I think if they see it, it's a lot more palpable in this fashion. Like, this is not just a word in a story. It's not just a Latin word that happens to be part of, what my teacher is teaching me today, but it's also a word that has, iterations in other languages. And you're like, oh, maybe this is, useful. Maybe my teacher was right. Weird. And just to kind of update generally, I know Smith mentioned it, but all the audio for all the stories is officially complete. I know that we said in our series of spring webinars that they had been working on putting all the audio in, but it is all ready to go.
I can also just do a quick promo for the audio. The amount of research and intensive and focus on detail to the audio is exquisite. It was like vetted to make sure that like a first pass through, the voice actors would go through everything, and it's really beautiful. So if you aren't comfortable reading Latin, or if you think that maybe your students want to hear another voice, and there are a variety of voices, it's a great resource to turn to.
And word check is back. So I clicked on some words for derivatives just to demonstrate that. If you click on word check, it'll give you all the words that have been clicked on, and then you can do a quiz based on those words. And it is a written quiz, so students will have to, create the definition of the word, and then they can kind of test themselves. So this is a really good warm-up activity for a story, because you can read through it and, tell the students it's okay to not know every word. Have them click on the words that they don't know, and then after they've clicked on just the words that they don't know, then they can do this, quiz with this targeted vocabulary list, rather than doing it on all of the words, and maybe they don't need, 50% of them. Okay, anything else? Should we go through the book a little bit more?
Yeah, just so people can see kind of the layout if they haven't had a chance to see it. So Tonsor, for example, has the think question. So if you wanted to click on the icon, you can see in the Explore the Story, and it's the top one. And it's pretty similar. So you have like a little footnoted 1, and you click on the 1, and it has the question down at the bottom, and the student types in the answer. So really nice.
I know I gave a wrong answer. I did that on purpose just so that you could see. So you can clear it and start again.
I gave lots of wrong answers, so don't worry. It's like, you'll find out. I got to play. So the think questions are great, and students really like them because they get real-time feedback, and that instant feedback is so necessary, especially for making sure that students can self-correct as they go through the Latin.
Yeah, and I think just generally for reading comprehension, yeah, I mean, for me personally, and this may or may not pertain to you, but when I'm asking students questions about reading comprehension, I tend to stay toward the bottom of Bloom's taxonomy. Like, what did they say? What did she see? You know, who enters the house? But these questions are a little bit more engaging. They're written better. They're a little bit less. Some of them are, written in a more sophisticated way, or consider this. So it becomes, and I know the ones I clicked on don't necessarily fulfill that objective, but believe me, the think questions are actually a great way to assess reading comprehension in ways that are more imaginative and more inventive than you might be able to produce, especially if you're like tired and you're just not feeling the tonsor story on that particular day.
It's
All
also
right,
really
and then
helpful if you, oh, sorry, go ahead, Steph.
good.
I was just going to say it's also really helpful if you happen to be out of the classroom and you can assign the activity and the students can open up their digital resources. So makes excellent work for a sub. They can monitor and see how the students are progressing. So I like that. And then the students can do that at home as well. And then if you'll just maybe move ahead to the culture section just so people can see. When you hear Steph and me refer to talking heads, one of the lovely things that Cambridge has done is they've taken characters and they've taken other professionals in the field and they've put a little head and they have these little speech bubbles and it becomes a very personalized way of looking at the culture. And once like Lucia has a little go about what she's wanting to say, you have the thinking points underneath, and then the thinking points, as we referred to back in the teacher's manual, how you can go through. It has suggested responses for them as well. They're also available in the worksheet form according to each stage.
Yeah, I'm very excited actually to start using the talking heads. I think that the students will connect to the culture better when there's a more direct line drawn between the characters that they're witnessing, daily in conversations and in these cultural spaces to get their first person accounts of their connection to the culture. I think it'll make the students feel more connected to the culture as well, because it's not just reading some facts on a piece of paper, it's reading about someone's experience with those facts through the lens of the talking heads. All right, and
The
then
last component is vocabulary, and you'll see a little bit more about what this looks like, but you'll see two icons again. And Steph's going to, when she zooms in, hover over each. And so you've got an English to Latin, and then do you want to just open it up so people can see the Latin to English is fine since you're hovering over that.
sorry, my internet is slow.
No, no, it's fine. So again, the multiple choice, and there is both multiple choice version and a type-in version. So don't panic if you're like, wait, I don't want the multiple choice. There are options.
I'm going to get this one wrong just to show
Oh,
you. I know. Oh, wait, I went previous, sorry. Check answer. Okay, so here's the correct answer, and it's given to the student, and the student can navigate. In the interest of time, I won't do the whole thing, but you can kind of get a sense for it. And you can see, so this is nice and targeted to the stage 3 vocabulary. And then what Smith was talking about is something that's in the assignable vocab activities. Was there anything else you want to show in the textbook, or should we move on to the assignable things?
I think we should move on to the assignable things, but I think what's nice about this is it's just another way to support student success. For students to dig deeply, do something as a quick review. So you've got a host of opportunities to review, to preview, to interact with material, and to increase student engagement. And you can do it all within a few minutes.
So then, sorry, I'm just going to close these tabs here. Okay, so we are back at where we started from. And where it says student resources, this is where we'll spend the rest of our time today, is talking about the language activities. So first I want to show you, well, let me rephrase. I should probably show setting up a classroom first, right?
Yeah.
That's probably the most logical one. Okay, so I am a teacher on Cambridge Go in real life too. But anyway, so if I want to assign resources to students, I would click classes. And then, oh, it's so frustrating. I'm like literally below where the
It's okay. So Steph is a teacher. I'm a teacher as well, obviously, from our introductions, but I posed as a student in Steph's class for the grand opening. So you will see I'm not such a great learner. I still need a lot more practice.
But as a teacher, it's really great to be able to get that feedback about my student. Instead of asking a question to a general class and, the one kid who's totally not shy and raises their hand, but they also happen to be really smart, they're the one who is gonna get the question either correct or incorrect. And Smith might be hiding in the background because she's not really certain about things. And so this is a way to support her on the side. So I would create a class. You would give it a name, you would give it a description, and then you would add learners to the class. And the learners would already be existing existing Go accounts. So what you would need to do, and there is a video that provides, is it a video or a website? I know, Rachel, you sent it around today. Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe it's not a video, but there is a guideline to do all of this work because you can bulk upload from a spreadsheet with the student's username. So if I wanted to do a class called August, and then I would click next. So when I go to add learners, I'm going to find learners in the Go database. But as I said, there is a streamlined way to do this if you want to add multiple learners at the same time rather than having to search for everyone's name. And then I'm just gonna add Smith to this classroom for today. Smith is a student. Okay, and then this is a part that we are working out because this became a bit of a hiccup as Smith and I were planning the webinar. And Maddie was very gracious to explain the process to me. But right now, you're going to need to add yourself as an instructor until we can get the Go thing lined up. But this is beyond Maddie's purview, so she is aware of it and she's working on it with her team. But it's something that we'll kind of have to wait for. So I'm going to search for members, and I'm going to go and I'm not Gigante. I'm like some example teacher. That's who I am. And then you would click next, and then you would confirm, and you would create the class. And from there, so I'm not going to do it though, because this is sort of a dummy class. So I did create a class for grand opening, and I know that I am a teacher and I do have one learner in the class, and this is her email address. When I go to manage class, I can add members and I can go back to that screen again. I can also edit class details as well. So, you need to establish your classes first before you can start assigning stuff to them, which is, pretty standard, I think, for ed tech stuff, right? You have to establish classes on Google Classroom and Canvas, excuse me, and all these other softwares. So this is not a new concept for us. And then you can go to this was the resources that I opened up. So if you recall, I got to Unit 1, I clicked on Unit 1, and then I went to Language Activities. And that's how I got to this screen that is here. So if I want to create a new assignment for students, I would click on New Activity. I'm going to select a class to assign the activity to. So this could be, I mean, I might suggest, I mean, you do you. I might suggest that if you have like multiple sections of one class, like you have 2 sections of Latin 1, that you split them up here in Go. It just becomes a little bit easier to wrangle with the data that is collected from it. So, maybe it's Latin 1 period 1 or Latin 1 block A, or, whatever the terminology is. And then you can select a stage that the activity should be from. So I will go ahead and select stage 5. You can toggle this on and off. This is a new feature that they've added. Do you want to show correct answers after the activity is completed? Now this becomes a conversation based on whether or not you would like the students to be doing this activity repeatedly for the sake of mastery, or if you want them to really just do it that one time and be able to gauge their proficiency at that moment. So, you can choose depending on what the activity is, depending on your class, depending on if it's homework or classwork or whatever. I'm going to leave it on for now. And then when you select task, now you have options, and you can do a vocabulary option. And this is what Smith was saying before. So there's English to Latin multiple choice, Latin to English multiple choice, Latin to English type in, and English to Latin type in. I'm going to go ahead and select Latin to English type in, and maybe you want to see, well, what am I exactly asking my students to do? That's okay. You can preview the activity, and it previews in a pop-up window. And then you type in it shows you, that the students would get this cue, type in the translation, and it's stands. And you can kind of go through all of them just to see, okay, yes, this lines up with the vocab list that's at the end of the stage. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this, and then I'm going to go to, sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, now I can schedule a start date and time, which is a great feature if you are a planner. If you're someone who does their lesson plans for the week on Sunday morning, you can schedule assignments to be released at certain times, or published, I guess, at certain times for your students, so that your students don't see their stage 5 work on Monday when they're still finishing stage 4. And then you can also schedule a due date and time. And these due dates are also really important too, because you want to make sure that students are doing their work in, a timely manner. Yes, I know that particular due date time has passed, but 5 o'clock has not passed. So 5 p.m. would be the due date. Or if you want to, you can skip scheduling for now. You can create it as an activity. You can know ahead of time, like, this is an activity I would like to do with my students. I will do it with them eventually. Right now I have some extra time to plan, so I'm going to get everything ready for them, and then I can do the scheduling part later. And then you click next, and it gives you a quick confirmation screen, like, you're sure this is what you want. And then you can save it as a draft, so that if you're planning for a couple weeks out, or your absence due to a surgery or something like that, you can just save it as a draft and then publish it when you're ready to within the curriculum, or you can just click publish now. And once you click publish, now it appears as on your teacher dashboard. Now, once you publish it too, it also gives a link to the assignment, so that you can copy this link and you can put it on the LMS that you use. Maybe it's Moodle, maybe it's Canvas, maybe it's something else. And so you can publicize the activity that way. But students will also have the ability to log into their account and see what activities are waiting for them. All right, so we're going to take a look at Smith's results in just a second. I just want to show you quickly. You can sort. So, there's a lot of activities. I've been very busy with all of my planning. So you can sort by most recent, you can sort by when it was created, or by the class that particular activity was in. So you can also filter it by a class that something was in. And then you can filter it by assignments that are in draft formats, assignments that are currently live that students are working on completing, or assignments that are report ready, which is basically that it has met its due date and all students who have done it, their data is ready to be, looked at that time. I'm going to clear the filters just for now.
From a student perspective, what the students see is something very similar. It'll say welcome, student, and then the student will have a list of activities. So stage 5, stage 12, and they will have open activities and closed activities. And closed just means that they've completed everything and it's been submitted. And unless you give the opportunity for a student to redo it, then it's out of their inbox.
Excellent. So you can see from the teacher's perspective that these assignments are in green because they have reports that are available for us to look at. And I'll go ahead and click View Report. And you can get some real in-depth content about your students and how they're doing and how they're scoring on various answers. I can see right off the bat the average score, not the highest, but there is a 100% response rate. So at least everyone's doing the assignment. It's just a question of whether or not it's whether or not they're doing it with the mastery that you would like.
There's also a really nice feature for students so that students don't skip questions that they might skip. Otherwise, it's like, oh, I don't know that question. So as a student goes through everything in an activity, the digital resources will say, you skipped like question 3, question 6, and question 9. And so that student would be prompted to go back.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Smith, because that's actually how the SATs work too. That everyone is taking online now. That you can flag certain responses or you cannot answer them, and before you submit the College Board software that some of at least of our upperclassmen are using, that software is it's like, oh, it's you flagged these 3, so let's go back to them before you click submit, or before you press submit. It's like, hold on, wait a second, you flagged these 3. Do you want to go back to them? So I think it's consistent with the type of educational assessment that students are getting in other spheres. So I can see here, I mean, right now I know it doesn't look like, glaring data, but I can sort by correct. I can sort by incorrect and get a sense for like which ones were most frequently missed. So 1, 2, 3, like right off the bat, we have some, issues remembering these verbs, but question 4, that was one that they all got correct. And you can kind of home in on those results. So yam is great. Fundus, we all know fundus. And then separately, you can also export these materials as a spreadsheet. And then once you have it as a spreadsheet, you can utilize these results in any other type of format that you want. If you have to do, like in New Jersey, we used to have to do SGOs. I think anyway, so like if you have to render this data in a different type of format, it's ready for you in a CSV.
One of the other nice things that I wanted to add on, if you'll just scroll back down very briefly to the student responses, so you see things like, let me see, I was looking for like TMET and TMUIT. So question 3 is TMUIT, question 11 is TMET. So very clearly you're looking for, is the student defining this as like feared or fears? And so you can see maybe if the student did write fear, they got the definition right, but they might not have gotten the tense correctly.
Yeah. And my internet was slow, but you can always load the question just to see. I know with vocab it's a little more straightforward, but with a translation or a selection type of question, you do probably want to see what the options had been, because there's a pretty decent chance you haven't memorized exactly what question 10 looks like. Okay, so this is by question. You can also do it by student. So here is my student-based report, and I can look at Smith's results. I can see when she submitted her work, but I can also see the time that she spent doing her work. And we have all been in a number of parent-teacher conferences where we've talked about, students who potentially rush through things that perhaps if they had taken more time to complete them, that the student might have had a more positive result. And so this is a significant piece of data to add to the equation, for better or for worse, right? Like maybe the student spent 12 minutes on, a 5-question vocab thing and they didn't score well, or vice versa. They spent 32 seconds on something that has 20 different answers, and you can leverage a lot of that data. And you can kind of figure it out. And then once you have more students in a classroom, you can also sort it by time. You can see, okay, well, on average, it's taking my students 5 minutes to do an activity like this. So then that informs your teaching to say, okay, so next time I have like 5 minutes at the beginning of the class or the end of the class or something like that, this would be a feasible activity to give them that would, help them practice vocab, but also to fulfill that time requirement.
I just wanted to point out in the chat, Sandy had asked if we could add ourselves as both teacher and student. So if you don't have the chat on, and so we can do questions with the class as an example without the answer automatically showing. And Maddie responded, your view within language activities is currently determined by the role in your Cambridge Go account. But this is what I really love about Cambridge is that Maddie says, I can take this query back to the digital team. So this would be a useful feature to be able for us to discuss. So if you have things that you're interested in seeing, bring them up because the Cambridge team is incredibly responsive. That's why we don't have any more screenshots anymore. We have live reporting, which is really great.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Maddie, especially a quick shout out for her, because anytime that Smith and I have had a question or a suggestion or something like that, she is all ears and she is like ready to receive it and ready to take something back to her team or her boss or whatever, just to consider it and say, okay, like, I appreciate you bringing this up. So she's been, wonderful through this whole process. With respect to the activities, you can also reset activities and you can make a copy of it to reassign it. So, well, you can delete it. That was not a good demonstration. You can delete it from here. You can also recopy that link to share it. You can end it. You can edit it, or you can preview it right from the screen. Now, this assignment was due already, so I can go back to edit it and I can extend the deadline. So I can start it. Oh, let me rephrase. That's not what I meant to do, but I could do that anyway. Okay, so let's do it through the lens of the reviewing the language verbs 4 from stage 10. So this is an assignment that has come and it has gone. It's already been due. We already have some data. And let's say I want to assign it again to help students with mastery. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same class, the same stage, and then reviewing the language verbs 4. I think that's what we did.
I think that's right.
And then it alerts you right away. You are setting a copy of the existing activity verbs 4 for this class. So right now it alerts you, you've already assigned this just to remind you, and then you can move forward to assign it again and leave it open for students. And in a situation like this, you can make the due date, 2 weeks from now to say, okay, you've given me your first attempt, and now I want you to go back and, redo it, but you can sort of take the feedback that was given to you originally, and, make something of it. So there are opportunities for you to reset assignments, and make them visible to students again. So once that door closes at the end of the due date, it's not the end of the assignment. And this is a change from when we were first presenting to you in the springtime. And I think it's a change in the right direction. Okay, I'm going to go back to the activities and show you the gradebook as well. So when I go to gradebook, I can show you the results of Smith's activities. So she has an average of 66, and I would go to each of these stages. I'm not sure why oh, okay, that's where the scores are. So I can see that in stage 2, she did one vocabulary activity. In stage 10, she did a reviewing the language, and then there would be a vocab activity too. So these are all things that would have been assigned to her, and I can see, an overview of her grades as she's progressing. But I can also filter it, and I can say I only want to look at, stages 2, 4, 5, 6, and 8, right? I don't want the most recent stuff. I just want those stages. And if you scroll across, you can see her progress on those stages. And then you can also see progress on specific activities. So if you'd like to just see vocabulary activities throughout the year, throughout the unit, throughout whatever, you can narrow it down so you can just look at vocabulary as well. And then the interesting thing, for our webinar today, I also gave Smith activities from Unit 2, and I want to make sure that we touch on Unit 2, even if it's just for a few moments at the end here. Before I leave this screen, though, Smith, was there anything else you wanted to say about this?
Oh, you can go ahead and leave the screen and I'll just talk while you queue up to Unit 2. One of the things that Steph had mentioned is the filtering component of looking at vocabulary or looking at a new language feature and how you practice those things. And I think it's really important data for you as a teacher to have in your classroom, to know which things your kids very specifically are doing well on and which things they really need to work on. It's important for you and it's important for them. And to be able to itemize that kind of information so that you know what you need to hit more heavily in your classroom, and you can bring that back to your team if you have a team of Latin teachers, if you're lucky enough to, or to have a discussion with parents or administration.
Excellent. So the Unit 1 and 2 language activities are separated based on the resources homepage, but that's okay because you're not usually teaching them within the same class anyway. I mean, it might be the same classroom, but even so, you're assigning these activities in a separate way regardless. So these are the Unit 2 activities that Smith completed for us. And you can look at the report. We'll do a reviewing the language report just so you can get a sense for what that gives you in terms of data in that sense. So again, we have our basic score percentage and our response rate given to us. So this is one of those, I was mentioning earlier that it's nice to have the preview available because if you're looking at relative clauses 2A part 1, that might not ring a bell with you. But if you click on it, it gives you, once my internet loads, it gives you an idea of what that task was and what students were supposed to have chosen for it. With reviewing the language activities, as you know, there are translation aspects of these questions. And so they have coded for, like one correct answer. And it's a little bit hard, to code for any possible correct version of a translation. And I can say that especially because I served as an AP reader for the first time this year, and the amount of different correct translations that we got for like a small segment of Caesar this year was incredible. I had no idea beforehand. And it starts as early as, relative clauses 2A part 2. So it is impossible for them to really program in terms of the algorithm, like the variety of correct answers that students can give. And so I just kind of want you to keep that in mind as you are looking to figure out how you're going to use activities like this within your classes, and then within your grade book too. I would hate to have a potentially alternative translation that's correct given by a student that the algorithm marks as incorrect just because it doesn't meet the precise, because algorithms are like that, right? Algorithms are very precision oriented. I would hate for, this to be marked incorrect and you put a grade in the grade book then that is based on, that. So just kind of keep that in mind for the language activities, that there is a lot of room and flexibility and leniency that you normally give with students with their translation, that the software, and like honestly, no software can possibly account for all the variations of what a sentence could mean. So, the huge crowd which had filled the street was looking at the shop. So that is, one of the translations that you might see. And then here, Clemens hurried to Eutychus, who had sent the thugs. Yes, stage 18. I start to miss it over the summertime too, right? Um, so you can see the variety of correct and incorrect answers. And then again, you can go to the student to see how the student individually performed on this particular activity.
One of the things I really like about this activity is that there are two components. So it breaks it down into an opportunity for students to choose the correct form or to fill in the correct form of the verb, and then to write out a translation. And so if they miss that first step, the second step actually corrects it for them. So it's often like, is it a third person singular or third person plural? In this activity, for example, and the students are choosing between which one. That first level of students identifying who's my subject and how do I know, and how do I connect that to the appropriate verb, I think is really necessary so that students can be more successful in that translation component. And students, I think, who are smart enough to say, well, would you accept this? They could easily bring it back to you and say, this is what I wrote as a translation. Wouldn't you take this? And of course, you would have that discussion with the students. But out of all of these things, I think it's particularly lovely that the sixth edition has designed activities that increase student engagement, that all of these activities are highly interactive, that you can assign them in such a way that gives you real-time progress and performance, and that all of this is designed to support student success. So, and it helps ultimately with your classroom management and design.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I neglected to go into Smith's specific results the last time I went into the reporting aspect of it. And if my internet were loading properly, you'd be able to see it all, but I'm experiencing some technical difficulties. But you can see across the board, what her answers were for the various things. So here I can see, to me, right, I see that she has a few wrong answers, but I can see, this is a feasible translation. I know it doesn't match this, but again, I know that, computer algorithms are hard to wrangle with sometimes. So, if a student were to show or to ask you, hey, Miss Gigante, can you just review my activity? Because I'm pretty sure I should get credit for at least two of those translations. One of them, I know I didn't have the right subject, whatever it is. And that's actually a really good opportunity for the students to reflect on their own work, and for the students to say, to look at the discrepancies, right, between the sample translation and their own. And sometimes finding mistakes is actually a really good learning tool for the students. And to be able to look at a sentence and say, well, I know it doesn't look exactly the same, but I think it's saying the same thing. That's a really good exercise for them mentally as they're working on the skill of, rendering Latin to English and looking out for all that nuance. Any language is going to provide that nuance as you go from one to the other.
And I think, oh, sorry,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the other component was when I was doing this, I was thinking what mistake would a student of mine likely have made, and substituting an imperfect translation for a pluperfect, especially when it's still maybe they're still working out the kinks and they don't quite have it. As Steph said, asking a student to go back and say, how do you know what you did and what would you need to point out for yourself in the future so that you're really paying attention, paying heed to that pluperfect verb instead of the infix, that's different for an imperfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good opportunity to have that dialogue with your student, to give them feedback, and it's real feedback. It's not like, oh yeah, you don't understand the pluperfect tense. It's saying, okay, let's look at the differences between the sample and what you produced, and let's turn that into a conversation that has meaning for the student. And I think that's one of the most valuable things that this type of software provides. That, to be frank, you can't necessarily get the same experience if you have the students doing written versions of it. Although I know there is a place in the classroom for writing as well. But if you ask a student to do to produce a written translation, they can very quickly, erase the part that was incorrect and, pretend that they were correct the whole time without maybe not even knowing why, but just knowing that that's what their friend said. So I have to have the right answer, and it doesn't matter why it's right. I just have to have it. But this at least gives you an opportunity to see evidence of how the student's brain applied English to this sentence and to have a more robust conversation. So we only really have a minute left. I don't know if there were other questions from our audience that we didn't get a chance to address.
We don't have any in the Q&A box, but if anybody wants to ask any, now is your last chance. In the meantime, I'm just going to pop a couple of things in the chat. I'm putting in the homepage where you can access this recording when we've got it ready, and other information about the 6th edition. Smith just shared her email, which is great. Thanks, Smith. And Stefanie has too. Thank you both for your session. It was really helpful, a really useful overview. And because we have hit the hour, the last thing I'm going to do is put in the chat how you can get a free trial of the digital course books with the embedded resources, if you'd like to explore those in further detail. So that info is on there, and it's also on the website that I shared earlier. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks again, Smith and Steph, and thank you everybody for joining us.